If you have been looking for answers that have everything to do with the healing journey, with shadow work, and the overall healing of the emotional body, well, in this video, I'm going to be covering the answers to questions that my followers have asked me on Instagram. So I'm going to be doing a healing journey Q&A. And if you don't know exactly what healing is the act of working on the part of yourself that has been hurt from your past, right? So every single time we go through trauma, and it happens quite a lot in our childhood, right? Everybody goes through trauma. It gets imprinted in our emotional body as vibration. And if we don't heal it, if we don't work on that, if we don't work on, basically healing the wound, just like we would work on just any wound, right? Like a physical wound, it will remain open and it will keep bleeding out onto people, into your life, right? It will hold you back, right? It will hold you back from the things that you want to do. And this is also known mainly as working with the shadow, right? The aspect of ourself that is repressed and that we don't love, because the shadow was created out of this trauma, right? It was created out of this trauma that we went through. It was the aspects of ourself that had to repress positive aspects of us in order to survive. So it became a shadow of those positive aspects. We don't get to know those positive aspects because we get blocked by the shadow. Now, let me get started, right? We're gonna get way more into it, but thank you so much for those who have asked me questions on Instagram. I will be putting here your questions, and let's get started with the first one. So the first one was by Looter77, saying, how do you figure out what you need to heal emotionally or blocking you from moving on? So that's a really good question. Now, when it comes to figuring out what exactly you need to heal, right, and what is going on, there is a way to do it. And we can do journaling, right? So journaling is one very amazing way to do it, through journal prompts and through overall, writing about your negative experiences, by your triggers, right? But the best way to do it is through literally being conscious throughout your day and noticing when you get triggered, right? When you get triggered in those moments, you want to ask yourself and kind of go back, right? Every single time you're triggered, it's a negative emotion, either anger, you're sad, you start doubting yourself, right? Anything that has to do with a low vibrational emotion that you're feeling in the moment, right? You were feeling good and now you feel bad. Something triggered that. So we want to dive into what exactly triggered that moment. And then from that, we want to analyze, right? So every single time you become, you make the decision to become conscious throughout your day, so you can notice when these negative things happen. Ask yourself, in those moments where you're feeling bad, what triggered you, right? And then the trigger, you want to dive more into that. Why did it trigger you, right? Why is this trigger even a trigger? And you can even journal about it, right? Back to the journaling. So journaling about it is also really awesome, but I do like to be guided by my negative emotions. And I think negative emotions are so powerful because they all stem from the wounds that you have. So number 2 is how to know what the emotion is at the moment, by nature.crab. Now, in order to know what emotion you're feeling at the moment, and this is something I have dealt with myself, I used to struggle even noticing that I'm feeling emotions, right? There's a lot of people that go through trauma that makes them numb themselves. So when they're older, they struggle really feeling their emotions because they were taught as little kids not to feel them. So the best way to do it is by starting to do a timer throughout your day. Right? Do a timer throughout your day, which is something I did in order to become aware of my emotions. And every single time your timer goes off, let's say you have 4 timers per day. Every single time your timer goes off, you pull out your notebook and then you write down exactly what you're feeling in that specific moment, right? Ask yourself, actually meditate and ask yourself, how do I feel? Where do I feel this emotion? Because our emotions, we feel them in our literal bodies, right? What am I feeling? Do I feel peace? Do I feel calm? Do I feel sorrow? Do I feel anger? What do you feel right now? Ask yourself and really stay there with yourself. Now, if you're having trouble doing this, let's do it the simple way. Are you feeling good or are you feeling bad? And then once you identify whether you're feeling good or you're feeling bad, you go down, that route. So if you're feeling bad, there's only going to be a certain amount of emotions you can feel with, feeling bad. So you can try to categorize how you're feeling, right? Because I know, putting it in a box, it's something that limits But in your case, if you really want to know like how to identify your emotions, you want to categorize them as much as possible. And then once you do categorize them, ask yourself why. I also would recommend doing that. I also would recommend doing, that whole analyzing process when you're actually feeling strong emotions, or throughout your day even. If you start feeling, negative and the timer still hasn't gone off, start to actually ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What did I see? What triggered me? Etc. So number 3 is, what do I need to do to fully release anger, resentment, and fear by Barco_888. So let's start off with anger. Anger is a very, very powerful emotion that stems from fear. And when you feel anger, it is always, always, always stemming from fear. So when you feel anger, the first thing that you need to understand is that your anger can easily turn into rage, into something that, you react very badly if you don't process it through breathing, which is the best way to process it. I know sometimes it can be super hard, but breathing is the absolute best way to process anger, right? Doing deep, deep, deep breaths. And if you need to like squeeze on something, because anger is a very powerful emotion on your actual body, it tends to sit up, right? That's why people want to punch walls, right? They want to kick, scream, etc. If you want to scream into a pillow, right? Squeeze a pillow, but do not let that anger leave your actual space, if that makes sense, right? Don't let it hurt anybody. Don't let it, and when I say hurt, I mean physically and verbally, because we can get dangerous when we're with anger. And don't let it like break anything. Just do it in your space, maybe in your bed, like with pillows. This is something I would do personally as somebody who had extreme rage in my childhood, in my teenage years, and it was extremely difficult for me to, have rage episodes once I started healing, because I actually started to work with my breath and start to tense my body up. Like, let your body do what it has to do with anger. Let it do what it has to do. Let it become rock hard and punch your pillow if you want, scream into your pillow, squeeze it really tight and let it out, right? Let your anger out with your breath. Now, resentment is another thing. There's so many ways to release resentment, but I feel the best way to release resentment, in my opinion, is to forgive. Because forgiving is never for the person, right? You can even forgive somebody without actually looking at them and telling them you forgive them, because a lot of times those people don't really deserve that. So the forgiving process is something I would always do with myself, unless you feel like you need to tell the person, you forgive them. But the forgiving process is basically, what I mean with forgiving is understanding that the person is working and operating from their level of awareness. And they do not have the same level of awareness as you, because otherwise they wouldn't have done the things that they did to you. So if they did something to you, in their mind, they're fine. Or maybe they think they did something really bad, right? And they apologize for whatever the situation is. They're operating from their level of awareness, which has absolutely nothing to do with you, right? This thing that they did to you was not because of you. It was personal. It was because of them. Like, when you take it personal and you internalize that resentment that you have for them, you make it personal. You put that in you, right? That hate in you, that resentment, that low vibration. And that doesn't really do you any good. The only person that you hurt by not forgiving, which is basically being like, I forgive you for what you did to me, because what you did to me was not my fault. It was not my problem, right? It was not something personal. If you don't do that, you're hurting yourself. You're only holding that in you, because the other person, what's they gonna do? Like, they're not going to benefit from your forgiving the way that you are, right? So it's really important to forgive and let go of that. Even if you don't want to look at the person in the face, even if it's a super abusive parent, forgive, right? Or somebody, I even say, because people have asked me, should we even forgive murderers and people like that? Yes, I do think we should forgive murderers, because why are you holding on to that? Do you think that person is worth you holding out that hate that is also messing with your life? Do you think that person's worth it? No, then forgive. Understand that they did it from their level of awareness and it had nothing to do with you, and move on. You cannot move on and proceed with your healing journey, right? Because you can heal, and then at some point you're gonna have to forgive and let go of that resentment, and then that will help you move forward. But until you don't do that, you will stay stuck at that place. So number 4 is How to Release Emotional Pain in the Body by Denny Valencia 03. So yes, your body stores trauma just like your subconscious mind and your heart does. So if your body is storing trauma, eventually that trauma can become something more advanced and actually become something like a physical disease. It has happened to quite a lot of people where they have a lot of trauma and it gets stored up in a certain part of their body, in their spine, in their muscles, and it starts hurting them. It starts giving them like chronic pain. It starts messing with their organs, etc. Right? So there are certain things that yes, you can do to release the trauma from the body. Not only should you be healing emotionally, right? Doing the process of healing shadow work, which you can learn in this video right here, everything about shadow work that you need to know. It's a full guide. But you should also be working on your emotional body with movement, activity. And the best way to do it is with yoga. Yoga was actually created, I know it comes all the way back from ancient India, yes, but yoga is something so useful for actually releasing tension in the body, right? Moving around the energy in your body. Yoga is awesome for all these chakras, right? For the whole chakra system. Yoga is awesome for releasing trauma. So yes, I recommend doing yoga. There's certain poses that you can do depending where your trauma is that releases the energy of that trauma. And yes, it can become very, very, very emotional, but I really, really recommend you to start doing yoga if you want to release the emotional tension from the body. You can also do conscious dancing, where you start dancing and moving, and you do that with the intention of releasing that from the body. So let's say you have back pain, right? And you feel like that is some emotional trauma that you have been dealing with because you went through, whatever, and it got stuck there. Then you start moving your body and you start dancing maybe to some beats, right? To some frequencies. And that helps you release because you have the intention of doing so, and you can energy manipulate. So number 5 is how to heal from repetitive patterns in different areas of life and how to identify them, by Styles Serafina. So this is a really interesting question. Let's go with how to identify them first. So there's patterns in our life, right? Because the first 7 years of our life really do program our subconscious mind. And when it programs our subconscious mind, then we are bound to repeat these patterns and repeat these traumas throughout our entire life until we heal them, right? Or until at least we lessen the vibrational blow of this trauma, which is, part of the healing process. So when you start to, have these patterns, or, you've had them for forever, but when you start to notice these patterns, you can actually start to heal them. But first, identify them. The best way to identify these patterns is to, once again, make the conscious choice of being, aware throughout your day. The reason why is because when we don't make that conscious decision, like that conscious intention of being aware, then we go throughout our day without really noticing anything. So first, become aware and sit in the observer seat, because once again, you are not your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your experiences, none of that stuff. You guys already know, if you have been watching my YouTube channel, I preach all about awareness. But awareness is all about observation. And when you observe, instead of, engage and completely involve yourself in the human experience, you can start to overall notice your patterns. So your patterns are always going to be stemming from lower vibrational emotions. Let's say even confidence, right? Not confidence, but pride, cockiness, that can be confused by confidence. That stems from pride, and pride stems from fear. So when it comes to all of this, right, you want to start noticing your patterns. When do you get triggered? When do you start doubting yourself, right? What activities did you have to do in order to doubt yourself? What triggered that? Then you can also, if you're having trouble with that, a really great way to do it as well is to ask your friends, ask your family members, what is something that they notice in you? Of course, if you get along with them and you trust them, because there's some people that can point out something negative in you and you don't even have it, right? Just because, they are who they are. But anyways, when you have somebody pointing it out and being like, listen, this happens to you. So if you can notice it throughout your day, that would be awesome. And you actually start to notice when you do it. Now, this is something that has really, really, really helped me as somebody who was raised in a narcissistic household and had traits of narcissism. And I didn't want to be a narcissist. So I had to ask my friends, for, my best friend in that time, to let me know when I was, acting that way. And she would point it out to me every single time. And every single time she pointed it out to me, it would kind of offend me. But then I would be like, you know what? I don't want that to offend me because what I did, was messed up. So let me switch it up, right? It might offend you when they point it out. It might, make you pissed, but remember, it's supposed to make you pissed because in that specific moment, your ego is going to get really offended. And that's normal. But do not take it out on the person. Remember that you told them to do this and fix it, right? Because obviously there's something wrong with the way that you just acted. Also, there's patterns that you do overall, even if it's not narcissism or being mean to somebody. There's patterns that we do all the time, like downing ourselves, like money spending problems, right? Or whatever it is, patterns that are absolutely not serving our highest good. So with those patterns, we want to notice them. Write down a list of things that you feel you do that are absolutely not helping your case and start to target them. Now, how do you get rid of them? You work on yourself, right? In those moments, you switch it up. When you start noticing in the moments that you did those things, then you switch it up, right? You switch it up. Either you apologize to the person you just hurt, or you stop the purchase that you're about to make because you are somebody who spends too much money, or if you're somebody who hoards money, for example, right? Then notice that you're hoarding money and start to, change your mindset and be like, you know what? This money's gonna come back to me. I can spend it on things that I enjoy. It's fine, right? If you notice that you're doubting yourself, then just actually do the action. Notice that that's a pattern and do the action regardless of the fear. So start to reprogram those actions, start to actually do the opposite of what that ego tells you, right? What that voice tells you, and switch it up. Number 6 is Why Can't I Socialize with My Peers by Desco_Nation. So often in our healing journey, it's very normal for us to, shed layers that don't really serve us. That's literally what healing is. So when you shed these layers that no longer serve you, that are not aligned with the person that you are becoming, then you are going to vibrate at a different frequency, right? Everybody is on a different wavelength because everything is energy. And according to your wavelength, if you're vibrating at a certain frequency, you're going to attract that same frequency. Now, since you're shedding, you're most likely not going to, it doesn't happen all the time, but a lot of the time, it does change the way that you perceive your friends. It does change the connection between you and your friends, because it happens that your vibration has changed and it no longer matches with your friends. So if you're having trouble connecting with your peers, remember, it may not really be because of you. It may just be that you change frequencies and you're no longer in alignment with those people. So now you may feel like an outsider, or you feel like you don't belong, etc. But it has really nothing to do with your friends, talking about you, or them not liking you anymore. It's just simply that you guys are not, connecting anymore. And that's very normal. And embrace that change, right? Embrace that change. Understand that things happen, right? People grow apart and, they move on. And overall, embrace it. Don't put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you no longer fit. So number 7 is, how do you know when you've actually healed your trauma, or if it's your ego talking? This is by Talia2256. And I love this question because one thing I always say is healing is a never-ending journey. It is forever, and all the traumas and all the wounds that you have are never fully going to be healed, right? You might do a lot of work on them and that they might close up every single time you work on them. Just because you work on it once doesn't mean it's gonna close up completely, and it never really actually does. You're always gonna be left with scars. That's the truth. But you are going to start noticing that triggers may not trigger you anymore, that you are no longer bothered by certain things, that you no longer care about certain things, that you no longer have those patterns that you used to do. And so those things are actually signs that you are advancing in your healing journey. When it starts to get better, when your reaction to the world starts to become more heightened, if that makes sense. Not heightened, but more of like, it starts becoming more of a higher frequency. So instead of you reacting with hate like you used to do before, probably, you're now reacting with more understanding, right? You might still get a little bit pissed, but you're now reacting with more understanding. It's not bothering you the same way it was before. But that's how you start noticing if you are changing in the terms of behavior towards the world and towards yourself as well. Now, the other thing that I did, back to the wound thing, I don't believe that we heal completely throughout our lives. I think that is something that healing is something that we're always gonna have to do for the sake of grounding as well, and for the sake of, shedding layers so we can move up, and then shedding again so we can move even more higher this time, and then shedding layers, right? It's a constant like shedding of skin, just like snakes do in different animals, where, they shed their skin and then they do it again and again and again and again, and then they become a new and improved version every single time. So this is why I feel like we don't ever fully heal wounds, but we do close them up more and more throughout time. But even 20 years after you feel like you have dealt with a certain trauma, it could come up again in a way that you haven't seen before. And that can give you a new perspective on this trauma that you are now meant to change, right? That you're meant to heal, this new aspect of this trauma that you had. And it didn't come up until like 20 years after you thought you had already healed that. So this is what I also mean with traumas can like reopen, and it will always give you a new perspective. But it's all part of the journey, guys. Don't worry. It is literally like if you're meant to heal something, it's because you're about to ascend in another part. So number 8 would be how to deal with being single by _Adam TDH_. This is a really good question, and I feel like a lot of people don't like to be single, so they get in relationships with people that, are not for them. Because in that moment, the person is supposed to be alone and supposed to be building more self-love and foundation, but they're not. So it's important to understand how to properly be single in a way where you can heal and become comfortable with it and actually enjoy it. So when it comes to being single, the whole purpose of being alone, right, is for you to get to know yourself. Because at the end of the day, we are the only people we know to the fullest extent. Only we understand ourselves to the fullest extent. Well, not even to the fullest extent, but the ones that will ever understand ourselves more than anything. So us, you're you, who you are, is the only one that is really, really there for you until after this experience ends. So it's really important to connect with yourself and with your inner child as well. The best way to start connecting with yourself during being single is to start looking at yourself like a child, more of like nurturing yourself, taking care of yourself, making sure that you brush your teeth, making sure that you do your self-care, making sure that you set your boundaries. Would you let your child hang out with people who are not for them, right? You wouldn't. So why are you letting yourself do that? Would you let your child be, taken advantage of or disrespected by somebody? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that to your child. So the best way to overall have a good relationship with yourself, and it's something that has worked so much for me and so many of my clients, is a parent-child relationship with yourself, where you take care of yourself, you literally mother or nurture yourself to the point where you are your literal child. And this also builds such a strong relationship with your inner child. Take them out on dates, take them out to, create, take them out to parks and enjoy your time with them, right? Journal, start to get to know yourself more, try out different activities as well. So this is something that is going to help you overall get to know yourself way better, because in times like this, you truly, truly, truly do need to get to know yourself better and go more in depth into the relationship with yourself. And the only way to do that is really through trying new things. Another thing with being single is that you should make friends, you're right? Humans are social creatures, we all know this. And there's, being alone is awesome, but you also need to socialize, and you cannot lock yourself in your apartment. So when it comes to socializing, one thing my friend did, and she's somebody who struggled with loneliness a lot and was able to overcome it. Now she has really amazing friends. She's living alone, yes, no relationship, and she is like doing amazing. And one thing that she has made me understand was that you really need to put yourself out there if you want to make friends. So go to classes, right? Purchase some classes, maybe Pilates, maybe yoga, right? Go to your local park, and there's always people doing exercises there. Start going out to different activities and talk to people, right? Get there first. And so when you have somebody come into the room, you can start, talking to them. So start to overall put yourself out there with the intention of making friends. Don't be scared to pop up, with a conversation. If somebody is mean to you, whatever, right? You just move on. And when it comes to the right people, you will attract them, but you must have the intention of attracting the right people. But yes, you need to put yourself out there if you want to, being single, you really do want to have friends as much as you can. But obviously, the right people, I'm not saying just make friends with anybody. I'm saying, put yourself out there, and those that you connect with will be there, but those that you don't connect with, better to be alone than with the wrong company. So number 9 is Spiritual Growth and Going Through Emotional Breakdowns as an Empath by David 32. So as an empath myself, I will say that in the beginning of my spiritual journey, I had quite a lot of breakdowns because of the state of the world, nature, and overall, everything that's going on. And you must understand that you are a sensitive being. You're a sensitive being. You most likely have your heart open, and you are experiencing a lot of the emotions that the world is feeling. Yourself as well. Things are just very overwhelming for you. Now, first, I do want to say that you are somebody who's rare. Not most people have empathy or, sensitivity for the way that things are. And sensitivity is a superpower, in my opinion, because although everybody has the ability to do it, nobody has it. Nobody really does it. So don't be, have patience with yourself. Now, second thing, don't take the things personal, because everybody is, once again, operating from their own level of awareness. So if somebody does you wrong and that makes you break down because you don't understand why people are like that, understand that you breaking down and giving that energy to that person who did that to you is only draining you, and that person does not deserve your energy like that. So if they did something to you, you must understand, like, hey, that person, they got problems, but it's not my problem, and it has nothing to do with me. So just cut them off, and once again, breathe out the anger, breathe out the grief. It's okay to feel your emotions, right? Validate your emotions always. It's okay to feel them, but then let it go and let it be. You must understand everybody's operating from their own level of awareness, and the world is exactly where it should be. Everything is working in divine timing, which is something that also has helped me out a lot, especially as being an empath, because yes, I do understand the state of the world is horrible, and it's something that, when I remember, it makes me really emotional. But what also helps me almost like not drain myself would be realizing that everything is working in the divine timing, and everything is working for our higher good, for the planet's higher good. And although things may look like that right now and be pretty harsh, everything is on the right track. And you may not see it that way right now, but if you look at it from God's view, we're all doing an amazing job at waking up, etc. So that was the last question for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you have any more questions, I will be doing more Q&As every single week. If you have not yet subscribed to reach your highest spiritual potential, I'm Irah Morffi, and I'll see you on the next video. Ciao.